Do you ever sit back and wonder what some of the best things that you've watched are? Personally, I have a little bit of a tradition. At the end of each year, I like to reflect on the media that I've engaged with and make a little list of what I thought were my favorite. And I figured this year, why not share them with you as like a little recommendation video. Before we dive in, I just want to clarify that my list is based solely on the media that I've consumed in 2022 and based on my personal enjoyment, so my opinion obviously comes with its own biases and preferences. But without further ado, let's get into my list that contains 7 of my favorite media from 2022. Scissor Seven is a Chinese animation about a guy named Seven who suffers from amnesia, and a chicken in a business suit convinces him to become an assassin so that he can pay off a massive tech company to recover his memories. And Seven also has telekinetic powers that he uses to control a pair of scissors, hence the name Scissor Seven. What I love about this series is how ridiculous and over the top it can be at times. In the first season, we're introduced to ridiculous characters like a buff baby chicken and an old lady who's somehow a kung fu master. But as the series go on, it takes those silly moments and makes them into lore and plot points, which makes it all the more satisfying to watch. And despite those comedic elements, the series does become more serious as time goes on, and it starts to incorporate elements of battle shonen to make for some really fun and hype fights. And I think it manages to balance out the comedic and serious elements well, at least so far. And the only negative that I kind of want to mention is that the first season isn't as polished. There's some weird issues with the audio, I feel, like the music levels are off, but the audio and animation greatly improves with each season, so it's barely even a problem, really. And I think you can see that improvement just from watching the openings, which I kind of want to talk about, because even if it's a bit of a stretch, I feel like the openings parallel each other and sort of show how the story is progressing. Because in the first opening, we see Seven kind of transforming into these different creatures, kind of representing his amnesia. We're learning who he is. And in the second opening, it's more of the main character changing what he's wearing, and we're seeing more of the side characters, kind of representing that there's a little bit more stability in Seven, and while we learn more about the other characters in the show. And in the third opening, which is more intense, we see the world around Seven changing as he leaves his island, and we learn more about the world around him. And each episode is only 14 minutes long, so that makes for an easy and enjoyable watch. Have you ever wanted to be in a toxic relationship? No? Well, Don't Toy With Me Miss Nagatoro is a comedy romance anime about a schoolgirl named Nagatoro who enjoys teasing a boy who is a grade above her, who is simply known as Senpai. If you heard or seen the trend or meme on social media that goes, well, this is where it comes from. The first episode is kind of rough. Nagatoro bullies Senpai until he cries, but as the series progresses, we see that this isn't malicious. It's Nagatoro's weird way of trying to get close to Senpai. In fact, we see both characters kind of grow and inadvertently push each other to improve throughout the series. What really makes the show enjoyable to me is that Nagatoro isn't the one who's always winning in these teasing attempts. Sometimes Senpai calls her bluff or misunderstands, which leads to more shenanigans as Nagatoro gets embarrassed herself. It's this back and forth dynamic between the two characters that is just so entertaining. Overall, if you're looking for something that's a bit funny and surprisingly heartwarming, then maybe you should check out Don't Toy With Me, Miss Nagatoro. Rainbow is set in 1950s Japan and follows a group of young boys who are sent to a juvenile prison that is supposed to reform them to become more productive members of society. However, the harsh reality of the prison is that returning back to society alive feels like nothing more than a pipe dream. Initially, I was a bit reluctant to watch Rainbow. Though it had been on my to-watch list for a while now, I was kind of worried that it would be trying too hard to shock you and be edgy and just wants you to cry. But while it should come with its list of trigger warnings, there are dark and intense moments. But I never felt like it went over the top. There's this message of hope and brotherhood that shines through that balances out the darker aspects of the story. In my opinion, the first half of the anime is a masterpiece. The tension is palpable. Every episode I was on the edge of my seat wondering what would happen next. Would they survive this? I was just so emotionally invested in the characters and the story. The second season is also very good, but it's hard to match the intensity of the first season. But still, I appreciate the way that the story continued and allowed for the characters to grow. Finally, I want to draw attention to the opening theme song, which is in English and an absolute banger. I could not get enough of it. It has found its way onto my workout playlist. Kuroko's Basket, as the name might suggest, is a basketball anime about a kid named Kuroko who joins the school basketball team. Now, in my opinion, it starts off really strong, with the introduction of the Generation of Miracles, a group of 5 exceptionally talented players who of course our team will go face to face with eventually. This sets up a clear goal and helps build excitement as we anticipating meeting each and every single one of them. I think it delivers on those expectations, since a Generation of Miracles are all fleshed out characters with different strengths and personalities, and their interactions with the main cast are interesting to watch. Speaking of main cast, Kagami, who is like a secondary main character, is a great contrast to Kuroko. He's more of a star player and an outward-going person, while Kuroko is more reserved and a support-type player. Their dynamic is cute and fun, and I like the way that they bounce off each other. The older members of the team also get their time to shine with their own personal character developments throughout the story. The only part where I felt the show fell a little bit short is with the new kids who joined with Kuroko and Kagami. They don't get really much character development, and I would have liked to see a lot more from them. Generally, the show is fun and exciting to watch, though it does get a little bit silly later on when characters start to get their own special moves. But you know what, I'll be damned if I'm not getting hyped at Kuroko going for an Ignite Pass Kai. Though this kind of made me realize that sports anime are kind of just like battle shonen anime, with the power system being a sport instead of magic or ninjutsu or whatever. Overall, Kuroko's Basket is a great sports anime with fun characters and exciting basketball matches. What more do you want? While everyone was busy being maidenless in Elden Ring, I decided to join the hunt in Bloodborne. The story of the game is intentionally hard to describe. You're thrust into this world that resembles the Middle Ages, with monsters lurking at every corner wanting nothing more than to kill you. Your only guidance is the cryptic message to seek the Pale Blood. It's up to you to figure out what that means, and how to navigate the hostile environment. This was my first experience playing a Dark Souls type game, and I quickly learned why they're notorious for being challenging. There's no difficulty settings, and one mistake could set back hours of progress. I expected that, but what I didn't expect was how it made me feel. This is the first game where I felt genuine fear. I was scared to go and explore, always wary of dying and having to start all over. Not only that, but the game does a great job of building an atmosphere with its locations and sound design. There's this eerie feeling throughout the game. I also find the monster choices in Bloodborne to be intriguing, because you start off with the run-of-the-mill zombies, werewolves, and dogs, and particularly annoying to me, tall white men. I have this vivid memory of the first time that I found one, thinking that I could talk to them, so I went up to him, and he simply looks at me, groans, and stabs me with his staff. Then once you feel like you've gotten used to your classic horror monsters and jump scares, you get hit with a different kind of horror. One of the cosmic variety. The monsters are now squid wizards, mosquito scientists, brains with thousands of eyes that sing. It's all so bizarre and unsettling. You don't understand what's happening, well, greater minds in this world have lost themselves trying to comprehend it. The only reprieve from the constant danger is a place called the Hunter's Dream, where a doll greets you with the gentle words, "Welcome home, good hunter." It's a simple gesture, but it always made me feel calm and safe after coming from a world that was constantly trying to kill me. I think it's a testament to how good the game is and how immersive it is that I felt so attached to a doll for the simple fact that it gave me a safe haven. The mystery, confusion, fear, and frustration, it all comes together to create something special. It's the perfect package of what it wants to be. It's a unique experience that is hard to replicate. Even replaying the game, it doesn't feel the same. And while I'm a bit sad that I'll never get to experience it again for the first time, I'm still glad that I made it through the long night. In the world of Kamen Rider Faiz, there are these monsters called Orphanok. If one attacks you, you either turn to dust or become an Orphanok yourself. The series starts off by introducing us to Kiba. He's a nice guy, and his life seems to be going pretty great. He has a girlfriend, supportive parents, and he's happy. However, suddenly he gets into a car crash, and this accident leaves him in a coma for 2 years. When he wakes up, he finds that his parents were killed in the accident, and his girlfriend has already moved on. His life is no longer going so great. Meanwhile, Mari receives a package from Smart Brain, the company that her father works at. She's also being followed by some annoying people, and in her attempt to get away from them, she accidentally bumps into Takumi, leading them to accidentally swap bags. Now this sets up the stage for how things are going to go from here on out, as the show follows 3 separate groups of characters: the Kamen Rider group, the evil Orphanok group, and the kind of good Orphanok group. The pure evil group isn't that deep, they're really just there to provide a monster of the week for our heroes to fight. But what I do appreciate is how the Kamen Rider group and the good Orphanok group kind of parallel each other and how they interact from time to time. Through that, the show follows the old adage of don't judge a book by its cover. Just because you're an Orphanok doesn't mean that you're evil by nature. And conversely, just because you're a Kamen Rider doesn't mean that you're a good person. Another cool thing that I liked is how the Kamen Rider belts got swapped around. Sure, they had main users, but that didn't stop other people from using them if they were able to. And the suits themselves are pretty cool as well. I don't like the phone dial-in aspect of it, but what I do really like is the transformation sequence where the beams of light kind of surround the user before forming the suit. It's pretty awesome. I find the series a bit hard to describe because it starts off with this very serious tone, but falls into this slice of life phase later on, which I honestly kind of find really charming. I enjoyed the dumb love triangle and just watching the gang help out random people. Because really my favorite thing about the show is the characters. They're all fun and interesting, and even the character who's a manipulative jerk is kind of fun to watch. Now, it's far from perfect. Like I said, the tone is all over the place. It follows some kid logic with tons of plot holes and things that aren't explained. Like, what's the deal with this creepy lady? Where does the power-up come from? We're not getting answers. But despite all that, and the fact the ending was pretty disappointing, I can't deny that I enjoyed the ride. Now, if you'll allow me a minute to talk about something that's tangentially related. As a kid, I was a big Power Rangers fan, and part of me still is, which is why I want to watch a tokusatsu series from time to time. And the timing this year for me watching it was really unfortunate, because around the time that I was watching Kamen Rider Faiz was the time that we had the tragic passing of Jason David Frank, the iconic Green Rangers from the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series. And I thought that I was beyond being affected by a celebrity death at this point, but this one surprisingly hit me hard. I mean, he was a childhood hero to me, and he always seemed so happy to meet fans on social media. He was such a bright light to many people growing up, myself included, and It's just such sad news, but he won't be forgotten. And I don't know if that affected my enjoyment or experience of Kamen Rider Faiz, but I just wanted to bring that up to sort of get rid of some of this lingering sadness that's been on my shoulders, and I hope you don't mind that. But I'm not done with the video just yet. Before I go on to my last entry, I just want to go over a couple honorable mentions. Things that I really liked but aren't quite my favorite, or were things that I already previously loved. So for movies, we got The Batman and Drive. For games, we got Pokemon Legends Arceus. TV series, Squid Game. For sequels, Inside Job Part 2 and the final season of Better Call Saul. For anime, we got One Outs, Violet Evergarden, The Great Pretender, Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro, Dragon Pilot, and BNA. And now, on to my final entry. Do you ever feel like there's a divide between work and the real world? I guess that's why there's the term like work-life balance, because personally I feel like work is a completely different universe, and when I'm off the clock I shift into a completely different gear. Well, what if there was an actual divide? And while you were at work, you couldn't remember anything from the outside world, and when you left work, you couldn't remember work at all. Well, that's the premise of the sci-fi psychological office drama Severance. In Severance, employees at Lumen Industries have a chip implanted into their brain that separates their work consciousness from their normal consciousness, creating two separate personas. Whenever they go to work, the only thing they've ever known is Lumen, their jobs, and whatever they've been told. And they can never leave, because when they do walk outside the building, it's not them leaving. And the outies, as they like to call them, are none the wiser to what's going on inside Lumen Industries. They just collect a paycheck. Throughout the show, we see how this divide affects the characters, and while we mainly only see one character's outside life and learn what led to them working at Lumen, the show mainly focuses on a group of office workers inside of Lumen. We learn about the weird and almost cult-like practices of Lumen Industries, and there's a lot of mystery going on, since even the characters themselves don't fully understand what they're working on. There's a lot of questions, like what do these numbers mean? And why are the departments so segregated? Why is there a goat here? Why is everything so creepy and dystopian? Severance manages to build a great sense of tension and unease throughout all of its episodes. One scene that stands out to me is when the group of office workers are rewarded with the opportunity to have a musical dance experience. And one of the characters who's mainly antagonistic towards the group and supervises them, he joins in. And that scene is a bit funny, because you don't expect a character like him to bust a move at work. But more than that, it is unsettling. It's surreal. Because the way he's dancing is haunting. He's still a predator ready to pounce on his prey. Overall, Severance is a weird but well thought out show. It's satisfying when things start to click together and make sense, but then you're just left with even more questions. Boom! And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. I know we're a little bit deep into 2023. If you were wondering, it didn't take me this long to reflect on what I watched. I had written the script back in January, but put it on hold. I was kind of worried how valuable this kind of video would even be. But then I realized that I watch these type of videos from time to time, so that kind of changed my mind and decided to finish what I had started. And yeah, so let me know what you thought, and let me know what your favorite things are. Maybe I'll check them out, and I will see you whenever our paths cross again. Bye!